Welcome to Deep Look. It's Tuesday, April 29th. We are live on YouTube at noon Eastern every single week. It is our weekly podcast about the latest in the sport of Ultimate. I am Charlie Eisenhood, the editor. Joining me, Ultra Senior Editor Keith Raynor. Keith, hello. I got something for you right off the top. People have been asking. Oh, you're muted, my friend. You are muted. I don't know if you're muted to me. I don't know if you muted yourself, but you're going to have to check
I'm
that
intrigued is what I am.
Okay, very good. People have been asking, could 100 men beat one silverback gorilla in a fight? And I ask you, what say you?
Are these like old dad bods like me or power athletes like you? Like
No, let's say like very capable, like, all 6 foot plus. There we got the render. We got the AI render. That's perfect.
Okay.
That is an enormous silverback gorilla, by the way. That is not
gorilla.
realistic. It's like King
I think
Kong.
that specific gorilla would probably win, maybe. I love that. I love this kind of stupid hypothetical. I think there's probably a better one though, because this to me seems pretty straightforward. And I think the internet grabbed a hold of this because a few people in the vocal minority on one side of this were getting clowned on by a larger population. And it's, stupid and funny, but come on. You're talking about how much mass are we talking about here with these 100 men, right? If you're talking about 180-pound men or whatever, you're talking 18,000 pounds a person. Like, I'm sorry, the men are going to take it. Yes, men will die. Like, losses will be taken. Some big L's, but
okay,
there's
so
just no way.
I actually have to be honest. I was very expecting you to say that the gorilla would easily win.
No. I mean, for the first 10 guys, probably, but there's 90 more after that.
A typical silverback gorilla, by the way, weighs 430 pounds and stands 5 feet tall. They can lift 1,760 pounds. It really does come down to the endurance aspect here. I'm just having a hard time understanding how the humans even get a foothold in the fight. Only many humans can even approach the gorilla before there's just humans in the way of them and the gorilla.
I totally agree with you. And I think that's probably how it plays out. It's like the gorilla is just demolishing nearby people until it starts to become exhausted. I mean, yes, literally I've seen plenty of gorillas in person. I worked at a zoo for a while. They're incredibly fast and powerful and strong, much more than a human. They have dense bones. You could not break a gorilla's bone. They're much denser than a person's and larger than a person's. They have thick skulls and thick skin. It would be pretty hard to concuss a gorilla. You're not just hitting this thing in the head until it goes down or whatever. They're built for this, and we are not. Aside from being big, we're pretty weak, all things considered. But we are large for an animal, and even there's some ability to coordinate. I think the gorilla is just tearing through people for a little while. They have incredible bite force, but then they're just going to run out of steam, and eventually the humans are going to pile on top of the gorilla until it expires. Even if it kills 50 guys, let's say it kills 50 guys, one guy a minute. That's still almost an hour of fighting, and there are 50 more guys.
I hear you. I still think the gorilla is going to win. I get the endurance point. I really do. I just don't know even
sustained combat.
I don't understand how the humans are going to actually get to the gorilla in a meaningful way.
I really think that it's literally the gorilla is going to start to pass out. The humans will be on top of the gorilla and it will be unable to move.
It's just going to suffocate
because it will be too tired. Yes, okay, I think that is the most likely outcome.
I can see it.
Or
I can see it. All right. Well, let's get into the rest of the show. We welcome your emails on this topic. deeplook@ultiworld.com.
I'm sure people have thoughts.
I don't know why this one has caught on so much, but maybe this is exactly why, because it's imagining the hypothetical, you can really see both sides. It's like the blue and white, black and gold dress thing.
We we need to send out the Elephants versus Tigers Ultimate Frisbee
Well,
game.
I
Maybe
was just
that
going to
goes
bring that up. That we did a subscriber bonus segment where we talked about the best team of animals to win an ultimate game, and it got pretty heated in the conversation. And some people said it is literally their favorite deep look content of all time. So it's a great day to get a subscription. Any level of subscription gets you access to the deep look bonus episodes. We do them live in the Discord, and then they're available to in your own private podcast feed afterwards. And I'll use that as a plug to say that we did a regionals preview and regionals reacts this past weekend. That is available now. So if you want to go deep on regionals, we went through every region in pretty close detail, and we're not going to do quite as much detail today on the main show. Not a ton of upsets this weekend as we get into college regionals in just a moment. And so, we would just say go check that out. Before we talk college nationals qualifiers, it's time for our trivia question of the week.
Well, I wasn't necessarily planning on asking this week, but it came up in the Discord. People were asking this question, and so I thought, hey, if the people want to know, the people want to talk about it, let's bring it to the wider audience, Charlie. I believe Pittsburgh in the men's division had the longest active qualifying streak going into this weekend, but failed to qualify.
It was Colorado until they missed a couple years ago, and then it was Pitt.
So now that Pitt's has ended, in each division, who has the longest nationals qualifying streak?
Let me think about it. I have a good guess, I think, but I know we have a little break mark notes.
Okay, Charlie's got his guess. Get yours ready in the chat. Shout out ST Gaming, asking for the shout out. And Innocent for being our one of the first folks here, as well as Chris Epps. All right. As Charlie thinks about his trivia answer, and you do as well, I'll tell you about the 20th anniversary over with our friends at Breakmark. They're celebrating anniversary by doing Instagram giveaways every week. Come out on Friday, they end on Tuesday. And last week they've been giving away these sling bags. They also gave away performance tees. So you got to see what goodies they've got going on. And when you enter for the free giveaway, you can get double the entry with our code. It's the only place you can get an exclusive double entry code. Just add it to your entry. This week's code is regionals, or is Gorilla. Let's do Gorilla. It was last week. It was regionals. This week's code is Gorilla. That seems appropriate. So
I think
type
so.
Gorilla in when you do your entry. You'll get double the chances to win free stuff from Breakmark, and that's Breakmark on Instagram. Breakmark, the official jersey provider for the Western Ultimate League and Premier Ultimate League. All right, Charlie, you've got your guesses lined up. What do you got?
Longest nationals qualifying streaks. I'm going UNC men. It's been a while. I can't think of a team that's been that good for that long. On the men's side. On the women's side, I feel like we just talked about this, and I should get this answer right. But I'm gonna say Syzygy.
All right. So you are correct about UNC Darkside. Their qualifying streak goes back to 2012. The last time they missed was 2011. So that is the longest active streak. I'm trying to see what the second longest active streak is. Nothing's jumping out to me here. It might be it's pretty short. I mean, we're talking like Texas and Georgia, like dating back to 2017. So we're hitting the end of the rope with the qualifying streaks if UNC can hold on at some point. And in the women's division, Carleton is a good guess, except they missed in 2016. So the team holding the longest active streak is Colorado Quandary. Last time they missed nationals was in 2013.
That was literally my first thought, and then I changed up last minute.
Fairly asks about Oregon. Oregon actually missed nationals in back-to-back years in the men's division in 2021 and 2022. And then in the women's division, they also missed nationals back in 2022 and 2021. So down the years for Oregon back then.
2021 kind of fraud though, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a weird
You
one.
know, you can put your
That's an
asterisk on that
asterisk.
one.
All right. Let's keep it moving. Let's talk about our college nationals qualifiers. Lots of teams in. We only have a couple regionals left this coming weekend. We'll talk about those a little bit later. There's a look at all of the qualifiers. I'm going to just rapid fire through them as it stands. Here we go. In D1 women's, we have UC Santa Barbara. They win the Southwest. Stanford, Cal Poly SLO, UC San Diego, UC Santa Cruz, and UC Davis. They all get to be in one giant Southwest pool at nationals. Michigan, UNC, Penn, Tufts, Vermont, Georgia, Colorado, Carleton, and Cornell. In D1 men's, Cal Poly SLO, UC Santa Cruz, Cal, UNC, Penn State, Michigan, Ottawa, Carleton, Georgia, Colorado, WashU, and Texas. In D3 women's, we've got Richmond, Davenport, Wesleyan, Rochester, St. Olaf, Carleton Eclipse, Middlebury, Mount Holyoke, Whitman, Puget Sound, Lewis and Clark, Haverford and Bryn Mawr, Kenyon, Rice, Union, and Claremont. That field is finalized. And on the D3 men's side, we've got Elon, Richmond, Davenport, Wesleyan, Rochester, Carleton Chop, Whitman, Lewis and Clark, Franciscan, Oklahoma Christian, Missouri S&T, Barry, and Claremont. We await the New England region coming up this weekend for D3 men's before they finalize the field. Keith, I did leave a name off the list. If anyone is watching live, you will see that I did not read the second qualifier out of the Great Lakes. Hillsdale. They beat Butler 15-10, I believe, in the game to go after losing to Davenport pretty soundly 15-8 in the final. And notably, they also were left out of the USAU graphic announcing the qualifiers. We just put it up on the YouTube if you're watching with us there. The New England is TBD because the regionals hasn't happened yet. When I saw that Great Lakes 2 was sitting as TBD, I assumed they must have just accidentally made a mistake here. They put this out before the game had been finished up or something. But that's not the case, Keith. There is an ongoing investigation, and this is confirmed with USA Ultimate, into a potential situation that may disqualify them. And so what happened is that when they played Davenport in pool play, Keith, they lost the game 15-1. And there are reports from the game that they were playing to intentionally lose, that they were, not playing defense, basically, just sitting their players in the back of the end zone, letting Davenport walk it up and score, that they were throwing intentional Callahan's. Yes. Like floaty backhands in the end zone to be easily caught for Callahan's, turfing throw, like basically just not trying at all, like trying to get off the field as quickly as possible. And this intentional losing is explicitly outlawed in the USAU rules. And so I'm going to read the rule as it is written. Any team that declines to finish a scheduled game or games, plays in a manner indicative of intent to lose, or attempts to decide a match by any manner other than playing ultimate on the field will forfeit those games and all following games in the tournament. And so that's what it says in the rules. Keith, despite the maybe seeming clarity of the rule and the situation at hand, assuming that, what has been reported by Davenport is true, this seems like a cut and dry situation. How do you feel about how this should be handled, assuming that the allegations of, not trying at all, intentionally throwing Callahan's and such is true?
It would be pretty supremely unfortunate, obviously, and go down in the ignominious history of disqualifications around nationals time coming out of regionals. We've seen them before, so it's not totally unprecedented for this to happen. But it's always sad because that teams generally are not trying to flout the rules per se. My guess is that the team probably didn't know that this was so explicitly against the rules and that they could be punished for them. And that's their responsibility. But I think in general, while we do want to discourage this behavior, I think a light hand here is generally going to discourage the behavior. If they do end up uh, forfeiting the team, throwing out the result, suspending the result, so to speak, passing on the bid, the kind of most extreme examples, I think it's totally justified. I wouldn't like be super upset with USA Ultimate over it. They laid out the rules. It's our job to follow them. It's your job to know them when you go to regionals, when you're competing to play at the national championships. But especially when we're talking about a division where so many teams are player led, where there are a lot of new teams, I think generally you want to take a lighter approach here and say what's appropriate for the context. Uh, it's a pool play game. Yeah, I don't really want to get too deep in the weeds on it as far as like when, it was a pool play game. It's their second to last pool play game of the day or whatever. They want to get ready before the bracket. They should accept some punishment. I think we've seen things like certain players, like captains being suspended for a game or two going into nationals. I think something like that could be a middle ground here. And you kind of warn the team, or if you have some sort of situation where they can be kind of on like a warning list, or they have to do some extra check boxes when they register for things. I get that. But I don't know that removing the bid is really the best case scenario in my mind for the appropriate punishment for the offense.
This is tough. I think it's tough. I don't think it would be out of bounds for USAU to throw the book at them and DQ them completely. That said, they were clearly going to lose to Davenport anyway. They were clearly the next best team in that region, and that wasn't really particularly close in the end, which maybe that shouldn't have anything to do with your assessment of it. But, if they won the game to go by a goal, then you might be more inclined to say, well, they had this unfair advantage of not having to use any energy in this pool play game that they intentionally lost. The thing is, we see teams intentionally tanking games every single year at college nationals.
I don't agree
one
with that.
seed. Listen to let me make my case, and then you can
go ahead,
you can
go ahead.
fight me on it. If a one seed in particular beats the 2, 3, and 4 seeds, and then end up getting the 5 seed in the last round of pool play at D1 nationals, happens all the time. They will they've already locked up the pool. They've already locked up a bid, a bye to quarters. I mean, and so they sit their starters. They take all of their top players out of the game. They put the back of the bench into the game, and more often than not, they lose that game. I understand that optically, that is different than like turning a game into a complete farce. But like, how different is it really when you're talking about like people trying to save energy in a game that doesn't feel like it matters to them for whatever reason? Like, that is completely allowed, to just like straight up not play your good players intentionally. I mean, it makes logical sense. Why wouldn't you do something like that? And if Hillsdale had done something like that and they lost this game 15-3 instead of 15-1, nobody would even be asking a question about it. I'm not saying what they did is the right thing at all, to be clear. I'm saying that it would be very, very, very harsh to not let them go to nationals because of it. Because like people are throwing games away intentionally all the time.
But I think you're yes, these things exist on a continuum, and you could talk about slippery slope, or you're taking a thing that's way up the slope and pulling it down to the same level. There's a difference, but intentionally, when a team sits their starters, I don't think they would say we're intentionally tanking the game. And I think this was said in the Discord. There's a difference between not trying your hardest to win and intentionally trying to lose. Like, those are different things. And when you're giving the other team free goals, you are putting in no effort to win at all. Like, you are intending to lose. And there's a difference between sitting your starters, which you could say there's a plausible reason for doing it. Maybe you wanted to get your other players experience, especially when you have the opportunity to. In fact, we encourage teams most of the year to use their depth and develop their team. We say that that's something that teams should strive to do. And when you have the opportunity because you played really well and you got to a position where a game you were playing it didn't matter or you didn't have to try your hardest to win, that's an advantage you earned. But you don't ever earn the advantage to just throw a game, right? Like that's not, there's a difference between going out and saying like, hey, we're going to let our developmental players play. We're going to work through some systems. We're going to not use all of our playbook or whatever. And catching the disc and putting it on the ground. And yes, I know that that those things exist on a continuum and it's a slippery slope or whatever. But just because they do doesn't mean you shouldn't draw the line somewhere. Just because it's hard to demarcate exactly where that line should go doesn't mean we shouldn't just say there isn't. Well, I guess there's no line at all.
It's a vague rule, though. I mean, that's the issue for me. Like
by necessity, how could you make a rule that isn't vague
right.
that judges intent?
Well, I agree.
I also don't think the intent. There's no question about the intent in this instance. Like based on the reporting we're hearing, assuming that anything else changes, there's no. You can't even question it. When a team sits there, top 3 players.
When UNC doesn't play any of their starters against Cornell at college nationals, nobody's questioning the intent there either. They're resting their players, the rotation players who are going to play all of the meaningful games, literally every point in the bracket. Those players are not playing. They're playing their bottom 10 players, and nobody is questioning that because it's just logical. Now, I get it. It's different if they're
I also disagree with you that nobody's questioning that. People do question that.
People question
USAU
that?
doesn't. Yeah, every time that somebody throws a game at nationals, there are always people chatting about it. There are always people complaining about it. But you're right that the authorities do not question it. Like and that's because we know USAU can't. How would they be able to enforce that? Understand what you're saying is that those two things may not be in outcome different, but I think it's more than just optics. USAU cannot meaningfully legislate teams to play all of their best players, but that doesn't mean they should just give up on legislating that teams have to try. That you can't lose on purpose.
I hear you. And I agree that like there needs to be some sort of repercussions for what happened here. I just feel that it would be ultimately, I think in a punishment standpoint, we're probably on the same page. I just think that this is not drastically. I guess my point is, if you were a literalist about the rules, you should DQ them. They didn't try to win.
Chance that they
intentionally tried to lose. DQ them by the rule in the rule book. Like, my point is, this is the kind of thing that happens regularly. They just did it in a ham-fisted way, and therefore they are now at risk of a DQ, even though had they played the bottom 8, 9, 10 players on their roster the whole game and lost by a similar scoreline, everyone would have been fine with it.
I'm with Joe in the chat who says that resting players and trying to lose are just not the same thing. I get how you see them as the same, but I don't agree they're the same thing. Like what we're talking about here are
you're not necessarily trying to lose, quote unquote, right? You're just not playing to win. And maybe those things aren't the same. Also, how did they score the goal? I want to know how they scored the goal, because if they were like, did they like sort of start trying but then give up later on in the game? Like, I think the details maybe they were goofy.
Maybe it was just another goof thing. Maybe they were like, hey, let's just throw a huck and see what happens, or they tried to Mac line it in or whatever. Who knows? Or maybe they scored it and then they realized they were like, okay, now that we got a goal, we don't want to get bageled. Maybe they're like, let's not get bageled because it's people have a stigma around bageling, but obviously people should have a stigma around this too. I think that my case for leniency is not the same case that you're making. Mine is that odds are the people who made the decision were probably players and they probably didn't understand the rule. And that's why I think you should
if they know, they would have done the other thing that everyone does, which is play their bench and get crushed. Like,
and we all would have been okay with that.
Right. My point is that, like, from an outcomes perspective, it's almost no different. I get that it's disrespectful what they did, right? Davenport's bench is probably upset that they didn't get to play a real game, right? This is their chance to play real minutes against a team that's not really trying to win, and they, turn it into a farce. That's not cool. But it also, to me, it's not even like really, Like, it doesn't really fundamentally change the way this regional's played out. That's the other thing for me. It's like, it's not like this decision to throw this game caused them to win the second bid.
Yeah, but
So
we know you know how I feel about judging based on outcome rather than process. You gotta legislate the process, not the outcome.
yeah, I think this is a tough one. USAU is going to have to. It's a judgment call at the end of the day. They would not be out of line based on the rule book to straight DQ them, but I guess my gut says they won't do that.
All right. Well, let this be a warning to. There's still one D3 region and a couple of D1 regions that are coming up this weekend. So you know what not to do.
If you're going to lose the game intentionally by not playing, good, just make sure you do it in a less obvious way. All right.
Come on, man.
I'm being completely realistic to how the game is played, even at the literal national championships. Okay.
But even when they put
go.
on the bench players try. Like, they're not out there losing on purpose. It's different. Anyway.
Yes. Okay. Let us know your thoughts. Deep look at ultiworld.com. Hit us up in the chat. People are going off about it. It's tough call, I think. All right. So college regionals, what stands out to you from regionals, Keith? Not a ton of upsets this past weekend.
No, I mean, there really was a kind of a dearth. Like, you had a couple of close games at really meaningful points. You look at Georgia and Georgia Tech in the men's division. That was a great game. Probably maybe one of the best of the weekend. You get Cal in the men's division getting pushed pretty hard in their game to go by UC Santa Barbara. We talked. I think you talked during the subscriber bonus. I guess one of the only upsets, I guess you would say, which is WashU in the men's division beating out Texas pretty handily to get the second spot in D1 men's. And I think that they had kind of a crazy situation down in the South Central. A bunch of the games got canceled on Saturday due to weather, so they had to play some kind of wonky situation on Sunday. I think that's part of why Colorado and WashU ended up forfeiting the final. So I think Colorado will essentially be treated as the higher seeded team winning coming out of regionals, but I think that their situation got kind of compressed. Southwest women's, we didn't. There wasn't really a favorite. So how are you going to say somebody got an upset?
That's fair. I mean, let me just read back the ordering one more time, and maybe you're just like, yeah, this is exactly, predictable, because anything would have been predictable because it was so unpredictable. But the order was UCSB, Stanford, Cal Poly, UCSD, UC Santa Cruz, and UC Davis. Does anything pop out to you there? Like, is UCSB winning? And like, kind of, I wouldn't say comfortably, but clearly. Is that a surprise?
I think so. I think that qualifies as a surprise. It's not a shock. You're not like, wow, I can't believe UCSB pulled it off. They looked the part at points during the year, and I think we felt like maybe any of the top 5 seeds, like, you have to get down to Davis before you find a team I think I would have been shocked won this tournament. But UCSB, survives the test. They beat UC San Diego, Stanford, and UCS and SLO in succession, which is pretty impressive. So I do think that you got to take this as a good sign about UCSB rather than like a negative about the Southwest. I do think that I have, I guess, a trouble seeing one of the Southwest teams really challenging for a title, but they all could challenge for quarters and semis. I mean, the whole group. We had Santa Cruz like finishing second. I had San Diego winning. So there were a lot of different iterations that I think make sense, and the scores indicate that most of the teams were pretty close together. Whether you look at pool play or down the line into the bracket, SLO beat San Diego 13-12 in pool play. You also had a close game between Stanford and Davis in pool play. Like, there were a bunch of really close games between these teams. UCSB barely beat San Diego and Stanford on their way to the title. I think it was a strong region. A lot of these top 5 or 6 teams are all pretty good, and that we confirmed.
Yeah, I'm looking back through our picks, like both the ones that we had and the subscribers, and there just really weren't that many spots where surprising things happened. The subscribers correctly predicted Ottawa in the Metro East men's. We both had Cornell, Keith, and Ottawa ended up just crushing everyone. So I think we didn't give enough credit to this team, and I understand why. They just didn't. They were they're down from last year's team, and they didn't really play much during the season. So it's like understandable that we wouldn't be necessarily expecting them to do much, but they were clearly the best team in the region once again. Um, and then what?
Shout out to the
Uh,
shout out to the subscriber for riding with that. But despite being ridiculed in the Discord, well, we won't name names, but take your victory lap.
I think that might have been my only missed men's pick. I think I got the order and everything else correct in every other region. I had Colorado, Wash U, Texas. I had Georgia. You had Georgia Tech in men's. The subscribers had Georgia Tech in men's.
Mhm.
I called the Santa Cruz upset in the Southwest over Cal. Although I don't know if it's an upset. Santa Cruz kind of dominated Cal this season.
Yeah, you had a great chalk was the way, and you picked up a couple of the places where it wasn't chalk, and it was thin margins, but that was what played out. And now we do have what should be the most dramatic of the men's division regions coming up this week. The two coming up this weekend, so maybe this will what separates the wheat from the chaff.
John says in the chat that Santa Cruz was without Rachel Chang.
Yes,
Wow.
they were not playing. I think that I think I even saw somebody say that they had a crutch or something. So hopefully they're going to be okay by the time nationals rolls around. But so don't want to speculate too far. But yeah, Santa Cruz playing without star Rachel Chang.
Yeah, I mean, any other notes on regionals, Keith? I think I'm not sure I expect like significant fireworks this weekend, but maybe this will be the change up. New England men's certainly going to be interesting.
So like I said, I mean the Northwest could have like the Northwest men's feels like not too dissimilar from Southwest women's. Yeah, this time you do have a clear favorite with Oregon, but like after that, like maybe you're saying Oregon State, but like what order could you pick that feels like outlandish? I think we're going to end up with some differences here in the Northwest men's. So we'll see if that could be a differentiator. And there's reason to have similar kind of picks in Northwest women's with 5 bids as well. So there's still some stuff to figure out in our scoring.
Shout out to JMU men's for getting to the final, losing to UNC. Shout out to Vermont for putting up a pretty tough game against Tufts at the top of the New England women's. Let's see. Any other notes on non-qualifying teams? Santa Barbara men putting up a real game against Cal in that game to go.
Ohio out in the women's division up against UPenn.
Call.
Impressive to see them come out and like we were already talking about that region was deep, but Ohio kind of coming a little bit off the radar to fight their way in there. There was shout out to my own former team UConn making the final in the women's division in the Metro East. Although Cornell taking care of business. Notre Dame also in the women's division still looking tough. They got to be one of the best teams that won't be in nationals.
Keith, I neglected because of the 100 men, one gorilla thing to properly congratulate you and Wesleyan for qualifying by winning the Metro East. And what seed are you going to get? You're going to get like a 2 seed?
You're supposed to tell me.
Well, I will.
I think we're going to get between 3 and 6 if I had to guess right now. Which kind of is, I don't know how substantively different it is, like to get 3 versus 6 or 5. Like 4 and 5 are ostensibly the same, right? And 3 and 6 is probably not that much different. So
I think it's more looking ahead to semis. It's more about your matchup later in the bracket. like avoiding eclipse by being in the 3-6 is probably ideal relative to being in the 4-5.
I'm not sure where the top three are going. I mean, I think that the top three seeds are probably going to be some combination of Haverford and Bryn Mawr, Carleton, and Kenyon. This Kenyon
It's true.
story
We
doesn't
haven't
go.
seen
They looked good,
we
so
we haven't
that's
seen
probably what I think.
finalized rankings yet, of course, and I
Right.
don't know that we're going to get any from USAU officially until maybe next week because we still have more
I
regionals to
was
come.
Well, I was curious if because the full women's division field is done and there's no more competition, would they potentially run the rankings on the women's division so that you could actually start thinking about how teams are going to stack up at nationals? But I doubt it. But I thought it was a possibility.
We'll see. We'll see. I think we're ready to take a little break here before we come back. We do go deeper into each region in our subscriber bonus segment that was recorded on Sunday afternoon. So make sure you get a subscription, ultiworld.com/subscribe, and check that out. Oh no, we're gonna talk week 2 regionals first. So before we go to break, let's turn our attention there. Do you want to start in the Northwest or in the New England men's?
Why don't we start in New England since it's closer to us?
Okay, okay. 3 bids, and it's going to be a real battle. UMass is the number 1 seed, Northeastern the 2, Tufts the 3, Vermont the 4, Brown the 5, McGill, Dartmouth, and then it drops off pretty quick there. The Vermont B team is the 8 seed out of 16 teams. So there's a look at the rankings as of the end of the season, basically. And so you have the 16 Brown, 17 Northeastern, 18 Tufts, 19 Vermont. Basically, I don't think UMass is unbeatable, but assuming that UMass takes the top bid, you've got those 4 teams fighting for 2 spots. Keith, how do we make sense of this one?
Oh, the rubber's going to meet the road on the preseason Will Brown make nationals conversation. I think
No kidding.
it's come a long way since then, but now they've got an uphill climb in front of them. But yeah, I think if everyone's going to feel pretty comfortable about UMass, which is a dangerous position to be in. But they're a corollary to Carleton Cut. Everybody talks about how they could choke it away again at regionals, but like outside of the fact that it happened 5 or 6 years ago, there's really no evidence that it's going to happen again. And the other 4 teams, like, do you see any meaningful separation between them? I don't really see a lot of daylight. There's no pairing of these teams that I would be surprised by. None. It would take McGill or Dartmouth or God forbid Vermont B making it. Vermont B makes it over Vermont A. We're doing a whole show about it. We will do the whole show will be dedicated to it. Vermont B's coming on. They're hosting the show. It's Vermont. It'll be a Bruckus or not Bruckus. That's the women's division team. It'll be a B team takeover for Vermont.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what to do with these teams. Like talent-wise, I feel like I like Northeastern and Vermont. But like coaching and pedigree-wise, it's hard not to want to pick Brown, a team that routinely outperforms expectations both at regionals and nationals. But do they have the horses? Like that's kind of comes down to whether or not they have the horses. At the end of the day, I'm going UMass 1, Vermont 2, Brown 3. I don't know.
And it's what it's going to be, Wendy. It always is at New England regionals. It was in the women's division. I think you should expect a lot of wind, for whatever reason. And yeah, I think you're kind of in the position of I think Brown's maybe a dog to qualify. I don't know. I think maybe they are behind Northeastern. I think most people would pick UMass and Vermont for better or for worse. I think I will too. What to do with that last spot? Vermont's been super inconsistent, but they still are talented and they're deep and they keep recruiting well. I think in the end they're gonna pull it off. there are star players on each of Northeastern, Tufts, and Brown, but I think in the end, I'm gonna take Northeastern. I think the Peterborough Fourth Jackson McGinnis combo can do a lot of work for them, especially if it's gonna be windy. So I think I'm gonna take Northeastern to finish third behind Vermont. I haven't had the best luck with picking Northeastern this year. Hasn't worked out very well for me, but that's the trio I'm gonna go.
Northeastern has played Brown once this season. They played at Easterns in consolation play. Brown won 13-11. Northeastern's clearly better than Tufts at conferences, 12-9 win. So I don't know. Vermont beats Brown by a goal at conferences. I think it's going to be very tight, and I think it's going to come down to who shows up and plays their best game on the day. I won't be shocked if any of those teams make it.
Chat says McGill had 2 universe point games against Brown. So,
wow,
don't count out Mutt.
McGill could come out of nowhere.
I mean, we've seen them do it before. They've showed up at regionals and broken some hearts. So I wouldn't put it past them.
Who do the subscribers pick, Keith?
The subscribers picked, and this is Philip doing the picks for the subs this time around. He's got UMass winning. We all do. Vermont finished second. That's where you ended up, right? You had UMass Vermont Brown. That was your ordering.
That's right.
Okay, so we all have UMass Vermont, and then we all differentiate at the third spot. Charlie's got Brown. I've got Northeastern, and the subscribers going off the board, Charlie, and past McGill. They're going to like the bottom of the board almost. 11 seeded Rhode Island. The subscribers pick. Do they know something we don't? Subscribers sometimes got some inside knowledge.
Are they perhaps affiliated with the Rhode Island team in some way?
I'm gonna check the Rhode Island roster just to make sure there's not some ringer we don't know about, some 5th year showing up and it's like, oh well, Adam Miller plays for Rhode Island. You didn't know? Like,
hey, if they're right and they called the shot, it's going to be incredible. I'm going to go with it's not happening, but good for them. Let's go to the Northwest. We still don't have a schedule. You serious? We have a women's schedule.
We didn't get our schedule until like the day before. So
Keith, it's been over a week since conferences completed. There is no reason for them not to have a schedule at this point.
Often it's because some team didn't fill something out or hasn't decided if they're
I know. 5 bids for the men's. No seating yet is posted there or schedule, so we'll just have to talk about that. But also, they don't have 5. Do they have 5 bids? No. Is that right? Is that what they ended up with BYU's bid? I
believe so.
I guess it is. I it's just like shocking to me still.
It's unbelievable. It's pretty stunning.
So, of course, you've got we're starting on the women's side, UBC, Oregon, Washington, Utah, UVic, bid earners. BYU won't be there. And then you've got Western Washington as a credible challenger for that last spot. And look, I think it's super exciting to what happens at the top end of this region. I also think the game to go is going to be pretty compelling.
Yeah, I mean, when you get this far down in a region we've been talking about being this deep, like you're going to get some drama. The ordering is obviously the big issue here. Oregon struggling at conferences, or are you going to put any stock in that? How good this UVic team seems like they can go up and down. Like, how much better could they play? We see Western put things together at the end of the year. I wouldn't put it past them. Figuring out the order is the toughest part for me here. But while there are other outcomes I could see coming to pass, I feel pretty good about saying that the conference results for Oregon were mostly due to circumstance and not anything to worry about. So I think it's going to be a pretty easy UBC Oregon at the top. Is that where you're at too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're all gonna have UBC winning, I'm pretty sure, based on what we've seen from them this season. They're on a mission.
Yeah, I mean they are like 300 points clear of Oregon. Um, that's crazy. It's you look at the gap right there from 1 to 5 to and then down to 8. Like the power rating of the top teams right now is very high. And like it's not really all relative. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean anything when you get to nationals, but UBC is extremely good. Um, where are you going after that, Keith?
Uh, I think I'm gonna stick with Washington. Uh, I think that they're just the deepest of the next group of teams. They're also been the most proven. I think they've shown the most ceiling, so I feel the most secure with them. But after the next three, I really have trouble with that Utah, UVic, Western trio. Picking the two that I feel good about is pretty hard. Um, there are some top end talent on each of those teams, but I think in the end I'm going to side with UVic and Utah because I think that their top end is the best situated. When you're talking about Carly Atwell and Lily Terpstra from Utah and Brent Freeland and Abba Brudney from UVic, I mean, there's a pretty good amount of high level experience there that I think they can outpace Western with. So I think I'm going to go UVic Utah in that order. Maybe not. I don't, maybe I should put the Atwell Terpstra powerhouse above UVic, but I don't know. I always like UVic to play spicy when it comes down to it. So I'm going to take UVic then Utah.
I'm taking Western. I'm taking UBC, Oregon, Washington, Utah, and Western. Victoria and Western split 3-goal wins at conferences. And ultimately, I just look at the roster for this Western team, and I'm like, this team is quite good. And they were just like not they didn't have a quote unquote great season when you look at it big picture, but also have a lot of close wins against good teams. And so I think, they lose by 6 to UBC at conferences, and then they lose by 10. Fine. They're not in that tier. But splitting with UVic, obviously I'm going to kind of discount that Oregon win, but I still just like this roster more than I like UVic's. So I'm rolling with Western.
All right, it's nice to see some differentiation. The subscribers are with you. They've got the same ordering as you: UBC, Oregon, Washington, Utah, and Western Washington.
All right. Good stuff. Let's go to the men's side. We don't have a schedule. The women's side, the schedule is up. It is 2 pools, and UBC, Washington, Utah, Western Washington, Victoria, Oregon is your top 6. So Oregon gets pushed down, but obviously they'll be the favorite to finish second in Pool A. Win your pool to get straight to finals and lock up a bid. So it leaves Washington potentially in a pretty good spot. And I guess definitionally, Keith, we won't see UBC and Oregon playing for the number 1 spot because only one of those teams can make the final. That's the consequence of their underperformance at conferences. So they can still finish second at the end because they can play their way through the second place bracket if they don't win the pool and beat the loser of the championship game.
So are we changing our picks? No, I think we're
no.
also
Ultimately, I'm not. Yeah, but it's just interesting that another team is likely to be in the final. Okay, so the men's side, let's take a look at the teams. Oregon is the top team in the region. Washington, BYU will not be there. Oregon State, UBC, and then a bunch of solid teams. Look at all these teams in the 20s and 30s. Western, UVic, Utah, Utah Valley, Lewis and Clark, they're D3. Utah State is the next one down there at 35. Solid teams, Keith. So again, I think we have some expectations. I think this could be the craziest regional of the year. which since most are in the books and none of them were that crazy, I got a pretty good shot at that being true.
That helps. That helps a lot. Um, yeah, this definitely is going to be intriguing. I mean, you're getting so far down the list to get to teams that like don't feel good that so many games are going to matter, right? There's so many opportunities for weird stuff to happen. And I just don't know there's that much separation between the teams. It's a lot to ask these college teams to play at the level they need to put themselves in any position that's comfortable. Uh, yeah, you can go out and probably lose like 2 games on Saturday and still turn around and do what you need to do on Sunday. But if you want to get to a position where you're feeling secure, like you could rest some starters and not throw Callahan's all game in one of your games, like you're gonna have to earn it. And it's gonna be a lot to ask of these players, I think.
Yeah. Um, I'm excited to see how this one shakes out because like I like some of these teams in the 20s. There's some good teams down there. And so I'm very curious to see if those top teams can just really take care of business. And frankly, I feel pretty good about Oregon. I feel pretty good about Washington and Oregon State. And then I'm not so sure after that. But I guess, maybe you say, hey, UBC is going to have no problems either. You're still going to have a battle for that last spot between Western, UVic, Utah, Utah Valley, Utah State. I don't know. Again, like it feels impossible to predict that one. Are you taking the top 4?
So Oregon, Washington, Oregon State, and UBC. I definitely. So I'm going to start with. I'm going to take Oregon 1. I think we could probably just knock that out, get that out of the way, check that off for everybody.
Sounds good.
I think. Look, Oregon State, I think, is the best overall team behind Oregon. But man, did they make it harrowing. I would not want to coach that team because I feel like I'd be pulling my hair out. I mean, they just like they could go out there and light up really good teams, or they could just go out there and dog it against middling teams. And that's just exactly the kind of team that scares you in these types of environments. But they're also so talented and athletic that they can get away with not playing their best and still win games. So ultimately, I'm gonna take OSU to finish second. And then you're just swimming in incredible contenders after that too. So like, should I finish out or do you want to come in and step in with your top two?
No, you go ahead. You give your thoughts. I mean, Cascadia Conference is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Washington's had some great results on the year, and then also laid some eggs. I mean, this is a team that gave Cal Poly Slow tough fights at points during the year. They dogged Utah. They beat Cal, but they also lost to Virginia. Like they lost twice to UBC at conferences. I'm not going to over-index on conferences, but there's a streakiness to this Washington team that's a little bit concerning. I've been a believer in UBC for a while. I've been overconfident in their ability to deliver on the talent, but why not this year of all years? They've got a truly elite player in my mind in Justin Podnar. I think UBC can make some hay, and this Washington team, while deeper, I think, than UBC and Western, has proven a little bit flimsy. I'm going to take UBC to finish third. And I think once Washington's off kilter, they could get a little shaky. So I'm going to have Western Washington finish ahead of them too. I think Western Washington has the right recipe. I think there's a chance they can finish third. They have an experienced, seasoned veteran like Eli Diamond leading the team. You've got Cedar Hines, who's probably one of the 7 best players in the region. They have depth behind that. This is not a 2-person show by any means. And that's not even accounting for Zoli. I know people are hyped on Zoli this year. He's played super well. Zoli Ishikawa Zabo. But I think I'm going to take Western fourth. And I'm just fading Utah. I'm fading the whole Utah scene this year.
Oh, no, Keith. No, don't do it.
Yeah,
Don't do it.
I'm
They're going to
taking
burn you so
Washington
bad.
to finish 5th.
They're going to burn you so bad.
Over Utah Valley, Utah, and Utah State. What have these teams proven to you? I think if I had to pick one of them, I would go with Utah Valley. They've got Pew, both Pew brothers, or two of the Pew brothers, and Porter Euler. That's a lot of talent.
Yes.
They're pretty athletic.
Yes.
They're a high-flying team, but
they are.
I need the wins, man. I need the wins. I feel like Washington showed us a little bit more, so I'm going to take Washington.
Utah Valley's making nationals. I'm telling you right now. Okay, so here's my list. Oregon 1. Oregon State 2. I think those are simply the 2 best teams in the region. And Oregon State.
I want you to pick Utah Valley too, so bad.
No, I'm not crazy. I'm going Washington 3, UBC 4, Utah Valley 5. Utah Valley cooked at conferences. They rolled Utah by 4. Who knows what was going on in the regular season? They might not have taken their full team to these tournaments. They played in January at SBI. Then they went to Centex, which is probably their spring break. And then they played conferences where they looked great. I think that you just described to me exactly why you have to like this Utah Valley team. The talent level is super high. So I got them going to nationals. And you know what? The fact that you said I'm fading the entire state of Oregon guarantees that a team from Oregon, from Utah, guarantees that a team from Utah is going to nationals, Keith. It's certainty. So thank you.
I feel like you gotta fade Washington or Utah, right? You gotta just whole state carte blanche.
Who do the subscribers take?
The subscribers also are taking Utah Valley to qualify, finishing 3rd. The subscribers are going heavy on Utah. They've got Oregon State, just like we do. And then they've got Utah Valley, UBC, Utah State. No Western, no Washington. So they're on the Washington State fade.
Utah State. Okay.
That comes in for flip-flop.
Utah State, what did they do at conferences? They won their games pretty straightforward, and they lost big to BYU, which, fair enough. They did beat Utah 14-8. They're good. They've done it before. That would be the reason.
I think they're only going to have
Utah State.
One Hoffman brother of the two.
I heard there's an injury situation. Yep. Note: Callahan videos are starting to drop. Already, we just put up a thread in the Ulti World Discord, available to all subscribers, and we've got. Let's see, Chandler Boyd Flegel from Oregon, Dexter Clyburn from Cal, Tristan Yarder from Pitt, and literally while we were on the air, the Ben Dameron Callahan reel dropped. So Keith, maybe in the intermission we can watch it at 2x speed. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got some semi-pro small ball and more, including our mailbag question of the week. Stay with us.
Gabe Yacht sending it for Krennic this time. Paul Krennic, unstoppable. Wow. Perspective after the fact. Calvin Brown adding to the story. Alex Nelson brings it in. Seth Reed turns on the Jets and runs it down. Crazy football from Leo Gordon. It's a Titanic backhand. And it's caught! Are you kidding me? The eliminated teams and their supporters dotting to make big throws like
Welcome back to
Welcome.
Deep Look. Semi-pro small ball coming up in just a moment. But if you've been watching a lot of College Ultimate lately, chances are you've seen graduates of the National Ultimate Training School playing and coaching all across the country. Nutsy has literally trained thousands of high school Ultimate athletes since 2001, myself included. And you can join them this summer yourself to help them celebrate 25 years of ultimate excellence and fun. Now, Nutsy's in the midst of hiring another stellar cast of amazing counselors that includes returning favorites like Olivia Hampton and Ben Sadok. Registration is humming along with sessions A and B close to being sold out, but there's plenty of room in session C for now. There's also scholarships available if cost is prohibitive for you. For those of you who are going to be at Amherst Invitational this weekend, look out for Nutsy. They're going to have reps who will be giving away discs, stickers, and other ultimate gear. So make sure to check them out. And if you're not going to be at Amherst Invitational, then you can get more info at www.nutsy.net. Go to Nutsy. Your ultimate career will thank you. Certainly, I could say mine has.
Big week in high school ultimate. We've got the Amherst Invite. It's an HSNI qualifier. We've also got Spaghetti Westerns out on the West Coast. Going to see the top teams from Utah, California, Colorado, Oregon competing out there. Also an HSNI qualifier, and this is like when you have Northwest Challenge and Easterns on the same weekend, Keith. I mean, this is big time.
It's exciting time in Youth Ultimate. I'm looking forward to HSNI because it seems like the talent level just goes up every year, and there are more and more teams that are competitive enough to be there that can't qualify, which makes the spots even more valuable.
Well, before we get into the score results from the semi-pro leagues, we have another semi-pro story really quick. Joel Caswell, the former owner of the Portland Nitro, and the was it the Oregon Onyx at the time? I lose track of the names of the teams, but former owner Keith gets indicted by the FBI for misappropriating federal funds. And this has been kind of going around a little bit in ultimate discussion spaces. The long story short here is that he is alleged to have been taking like PPP loans and small business administration loans and other grant money from the government, and then using it for not its intended purposes, including things like making up employees. So he's been charged with 4 felony counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of tax evasion, 1 count of aggravated identity theft, and 15 counts of failure to collect or truthfully account for and pay tax. There are a lot of negative comments from players on the teams under the Caswell regime about things like not getting paid. And having read the article in the RV Times, it is very damning, including a lot of quotes from other business owners who are dealing with Caswell in various capacities under many, many different businesses where they're getting shorted, they're not getting paid, services not rendered, all kinds of stuff. Not looking good.
You can see why the semi-pro leagues were eager to get new ownership and management on board with the respective franchises there that have become the Oregon Steel now, and the Nitro situation, like obviously ugly. You hope that due diligence was done, that the vetting was proper up front, but now hopefully they'll figure it out in court, and you just don't want this kind of stuff around the already challenging and tenuous environment of trying to manage a semi-professional ultimate organization.
Yeah. I mean, it's there is specifically a reference in this article, by the way, to money going to the Frisbee team. So I'm quoting from the RV Times, the Rogue Valley Times. When the Small Business Administration approved the loan agreement and paid $224,000 to Siskiyou Cascade Industries, the bank account for SEI, this is another business owned by Caswell, The bank account had a balance of less than $150 at the time funds were deposited. Caswell then allegedly transferred $70,000 of the federal funds to his Pearl Sport Group LLC for his Portland Nitro Ultimate Frisbee team, which he owned between 2022 and early 2024. So explicitly a reference in the court filings about money being used to pay for one business and then being illegally transferred to settle up debts in another business.
There's assuredly it was somebody's job, Charlie, to read that he transferred that stuff to an Ultimate Frisbee team, and somebody had to look up if that's a real thing. Like somebody was probably they were like, okay, is he just laundering that? Is that a real business or is that a front? Like, can somebody look into this? Someone had to Google it.
Someone definitely had to Google it. Let's get into the semi-pro small ball. We'll start in the PUL. Big win this week for New York over the Raleigh Radiants in New York. Interesting one here, Keith. The Radiants were granted a goal at the end of the first quarter, but according to, I was literally talking to the producer, Dana Matson, who is an engineer and producer here at Ultiworld, and he was producing this game, and he said that they had the clock exactly synced with the broadcast, and time had expired. They had put up, last possession, as is the rules in the PUL. There was a turnover. Radiants got the disc. There was no whistle. They played. They scored. Ultimately, the observers come up at halftime and check on this and realize, wait a minute, that shouldn't have counted. They take the score off the board, and the Radiants lose by 1.
And this is, I watched the broadcast, and it was like this is not Aaron Gordon tip dunk. Like, oh, can we even find the frame? The missing frame. They can't even find that frame. It's that close. This is 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. There's the turnover. This is seconds after the play happens. Now you hope that I don't know who's responsible for catching that in the moment. It's obviously not the player's fault that they picked up and played and scored. Like that. It's not their fault, so it stinks that they punished them. But it was a goal that should have been disallowed, and it stinks that it wasn't caught at the time, so that everything was a little bit clearer. It wasn't. I mean, I'm sure I haven't heard anybody from Radiant say, "Oh, that's why we lost the game." I mean, they had the ball like 15 yards outside the end zone with a chance to tie it at the end of regulation. Like, yes, it was not ideal, and it would have been great to have another point on the board. But I don't think they're blaming it on that, and I wouldn't blame it on that situation either. I mean, they had a lot of trouble stopping former Carolinian Ellie Youngs. She was giving them problems. Jolie Krebs was in her bag. Very impressed with Eli Pressburg. Both teams were missing players. No Yina, no Vale for the Gridlock, no Claire Revere for Raleigh. This was not, I think, an exact picture of how you should expect these two teams to compete against each other. But Gridlock able to get it done despite missing what are two of their best 4 players. Maybe they're 2 best players.
I have a question, Keith. How do I see the PUL standings? Is it not possible? This is a failure of this league to not have an easy way to see the win-loss records of the teams. Like, there's a scores and standings button, but it only has past results and then weekly scores. So aggravating. Anyway, big win for New York. And it's not a shameful loss for Radiants to lose to the defending champs on the road. But still hurts to lose in that fashion.
Yeah, it'll stick with them. They know that they had a chance to legitimately win this game and just couldn't pull it off.
Let's see. That was the only game of the weekend, I believe, in the PUL. So
yes, Raleigh has now completed 3 games, and Minnesota hasn't played yet. So
that's how it goes with the scheduling sometimes. I believe the Atlanta Hustle and the UFA are going to play 8 games before Chicago plays their second.
What?
It's kind of crazy. So let's go to the Western Ultimate League. Some big games over there as well. And pulling up the schedule there and the standings. Colorado gets the win over the Wild, still winless Wild, even though they've been competitive. That's probably going to do it for their playoff hopes. Colorado moves to 4-0. And then the big one is that the San Diego Super Bloom get an OT win over Seattle 16-15 in San Diego to move to 4-0 and hand Seattle their first loss.
Crazy game down the stretch. San Diego needed to tie it up, like basically, in that final possession, to beat the buzzer to force OT, and it was like a jump ball. Dean Alamelic throws up a jump ball forehand, and Avery Jones like catches it right as a help defender also gets the disc, and they have to like sit there and look at each other and try and figure out who actually got to it first. San Diego, I think the tape shows that Jones had it first. Although it's close, it's pretty close. That forces them to OT, and then in the OT, that San Diego has the disc and they're marching as the clock's running down. And this is a buzzer beater situation. They have to finish before the clock runs out. They throw what looks to be the turnover, but there was a timeout with 2 seconds left. So they come out of the timeout and run kind of like a split stack, and Seattle's like poaching on the stack, and just nobody picks up Kelly Iwamoto. Rebecca Ellis just kind of has like a chance to just sling one in there. Iwamoto gets it for the win. Seattle, great defensive game for Seattle. They played really well on that end. Sage Ojurski still looking like a star for Seattle as well, but not able to overcome San Diego. And I think what's going to go down as the biggest regular season game in the Western Ultimate League so far, and eventually altogether this year.
Could that be a preview of a finals? What do you think?
They I guess I don't really know. I guess I shouldn't discount Colorado. I mean, they're so talented. I think I would have Colorado and San Diego just a tick above Seattle, but it's very close between the three of them.
It's gonna be a fun fight to the finish here, and exciting championship weekend. Let's move on to week 1 in the UFA. We've got some really interesting results this past weekend. Atlanta gets a big win over Salt Lake at home. Atlanta wins 23-21. Great game. Philly beats DC for the first time in like 7 years in DC in a windy game, 16-15. No Boxley for that one for the Breeze. Easy wins for Boston over Montreal, Colorado over Oregon, New York over Las Vegas. That was just an absolute. It was exactly what you would have expected, Keith. I don't think we set the line high enough. It was New York minus 9.5, and New York wins by almost 20. Austin,
this guy came here with 9.5, and I was like, I can't believe you're setting it below double digits. I tried to set the line high enough.
I was wrong. And then the biggest result probably of the weekend is Oakland ultimately getting a 5-goal win over New York in Oakland in the first game of the season. It wasn't that lopsided of a game. It was pretty close. New York had a chance to cut it to 1 in the fourth quarter, with like 5-6 minutes left, but Oakland ended up pulling away in the end. And Spiders putting everybody on notice. I feel 100% vindicated with my takes, although I was too afraid to take Oakland plus 2.5. It clearly was the right side, and Spiders looked awesome, Keith.
They did. I mean, Robin Vickers-Batzdorf giving Jack Williams fits. He had like 600-700 turnovers, something like that. New York. It
was literally a career high in a single game turnovers for Williams with 6.
And I think the scary thing is Oakland's probably going to get better as they get their college kids back and they integrate some of these, some of the guys who haven't played in the league before, like Adam Rees. Like as they get those players more situated, I think Oakland's probably going to get even better. I do also expect New York to get a lot better as they get Max Shepard and
I do too.
Ever Shapiro more on board, and some of their other new guys that they're bringing in. So they were on a road doubleheader, right? No Calvin Brown. They're traveling a long ways and playing back to back. So caveats abound, but certainly a well-earned win for Oakland, and like you said, gonna let people know that they're in it to win it. I mean, you certainly are going to earmark them as the favorite in the West now, right?
Oh, of course. I mean, I already had them as the favorite, but now it's I don't think there's a question. I mean, Leo Gordon in his, UFA debut was fantastic. I mean, maybe the best player in the game. Uh, and I think that, assuming Oakland plays their guys all season, which I did hear some rumors that some of their top players will not be going to road games, which could make the path more treacherous. I just think that they have the most talent top to bottom.
Well, we'll see if we've seen West teams score big wins before, but what we haven't seen generally is West teams play super consistently. So we know that there are other tough competition in their division. They're not going to travel well. I'm going to reserve judgment, but the ceiling obviously is super high.
And how about Philly? I just pulled up Evan Lepler's Tuesday toss. They had only beaten the Breeze once in their previous 28 meetings over the last 11 years. That's how lopsided it's been in favor of DC. And I don't think anybody would have picked them to get this win. But they've been a tough team. They've got some talent, and they didn't even have the Grossbergs this weekend. So reinforcements coming later this season for the Phoenix. Crazy one. A little windy. The DC Breeze looked terrible in the wind at championship weekend last year, and they start off the season looking bad in the wind. Are they a fair weather team, Keith?
How many windy games do they have to lose before the league mandates that they change their name?
I think we're close. I think 3 strikes and you're out, Keith.
All right, you're on notice, Breeze. Lose again in the wind, and it's curtains. You got to get a new name.
All right. That's going to do it for the small ball. We've got mailbag question of the week. What do we have this week, Keith?
This week's mailbag question of the week. Charlie, you can speak to this from experience. What makes a good commentator in Ultimate, and does it change based on the level of play that you're calling the game? You've seen it pretty much at every level.
Interesting question for us to answer, as we're both. I mean, you probably commentated more total Ultimate games than I have, Keith, because I've been doing more producing and less commentating over the last couple of years. But
there's no probably about it. I definitely have, but you've probably been a part of more broadcasts, but if you count all the commentary that you've listened to and been a part of, you might exceed my total.
Here's the thing. I don't think my answer is going to be that interesting, because I would give you the same answer if I was talking about another sport. This won't come as a shock to people who've been listening to this podcast for a long time, but I don't necessarily think there's something that's unique about Ultimate and commentary in Ultimate that specifically makes you good at Ultimate commentary. I do think that there's like a little bit less of a strictness of how to approach commentary in Ultimate compared to, professional sports. But I still think that the things that make you good are, knowing what you're talking about, having prepared, being able to speak fluidly on the microphone and not be awkward, bringing energy to the game in whatever way that works for you and your style as a commentator, because there's lots of different styles that can be functional, right? You can be funny and silly if you can bring energy and insight. You can also be super X's and O's focused, but sometimes those people tend to not bring enough energy. So I think there's lots of different ways to get there, but you want people to enjoy the game more because you're on the broadcast.
That you got to the thing that I think is ultimately the point, which is you have to be additive. You have to be bringing something to the table. Simply describing what's happening on the field is just, anybody with eyes who's looking at the screen can tell you what's happening on the field. You're not bringing anything to the broadcast then. So you have to bring something to the table, and whether that is being funny or insightful or providing additional context and information, that's I think what your job is to help make the broadcast engaging and to tell the story of the game in whatever fashion you feel is the most appropriate. I do think that it does change based on level, in part because of how you have to prepare, the amount of information there, and also like what people are looking to get out of the broadcast. When you're calling a YCC game, and most people are looking for a positive, fun, celebrational experience. When you're calling an elite club final, people are a little more open to criticism, examination of what's happening on the field than you need to bring to a youth level game. So I think it varies a little bit on level, but the things that make you a good commentator probably don't change that much between them. So having personality on the mic, but in a way that feels like it's bringing something organized and useful to the broadcast, working together well with your co-commentator and your production team.
Great point.
Also super valuable skill. But I also think, that we're still discovering a lot of it. Like I don't know that anybody's necessarily cracked the code of how to talk about Ultimate. I mean, in part because we have a sport where the language is like really diverse. The way people look at and talk about the game is pretty diverse because things have developed so regionally. So I think we're still figuring out just the right way to talk about the rhythm of a game and the rhythm of a broadcast and to communicate clearly. So it's still something where like we are evolving as we go, in my opinion.
I would like to note that it is in our, I don't want to quite say short term, but let's say medium term plans for Ultiworld to start doing some more to develop commentators. We're talking about doing like kind of commentary boot camps for both people who work with us as commentators, but also people who are interested in getting involved in Ultimate commentary. There's always people who want to get into broadcast, into commentating. I will say, having done it a long time, it's a lot harder than you would think. Like if you sit at home and you're just like, oh, I would do better than these clowns. You probably wouldn't. It's not easy. And even people who are very smart, like coach types, doesn't always translate that well to broadcasting. And it's this kind of fine balance of, can you bring insight but also be enjoyable to listen to and like work on the craft of commentating, which is kind of its own thing, along with understanding the game at a high enough level to be able to talk about it and tell people what they're seeing. Sometimes I think people get overly invested in wanting to hear from like the super coach expert, but have you ever watched an NBA game? They're not getting in the weeds of the double elevator screenplay that they're running with the pin down and blah 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 blah. It's not happening. Like, yes, people analyze the NBA basketball or you name the sport to that level, but it's really about being able to talk about the key thing that happens to open up the play, because it's just otherwise it's not accessible to a wide audience. You can't just talk about, oh, they ran horns. Like, no one knows what that means. So I think that sometimes Ultimate players, I think, tend to like that because there's a subset of Ultimate players who are very invested in understanding like very high level strategy of the game. But that doesn't always make for great commentary. It's about being able to translate that super high level strategic knowledge down to a level of the broadcast that lets people feel like they're seeing something new without being too much jargon. Just a side note.
Oh wait, well, then let me get one in. My unique Ultimate thing is that so much of our audience so much of the audience is intimately knowledgeable about the players in the team in a way that just like you're not when you watch a major professional sports broadcast. Like I'm not talking about do you know their stats. I'm talking about like people who know, what the person submitted for their 4th grade science report. This kind of stuff. Like people are very intimately knowledgeable of players and teams and like kind of want that to be a part of the broadcast. And it's just, I can't explain how I think that is so uninteresting to people who aren't connected to the players like that. And so you sometimes you get people who are like, oh, I want friends of the team to give like the true insight and like really talk about all the silly stuff that happens. And some of that, there is some space for that, but it's just not super accessible, I think, to the wider audience. That's why you don't hear it in traditional broadcasts too, but also our audience is unique in that way.
And the homerism is brutal when that kind of thing happens. It tends to be painful to listen to. It's I agree with what you said earlier. It's a work in progress and everyone's still getting better. And I think there's probably still some people who are active players that I would love to see become more active broadcasters, because I think they have a real talent. But, people love to play, and it's sometimes hard to get people to say, okay, I'll come commentate. But
We may be
keep working
close
on it.
to a leap. There's so much more opportunity for commentary and to hear commentary than there used to be. I mean, just the explosion of broadcasts for like European Ultimate and obviously the semi-pro leagues. It just means that there's a lot more broadcast Ultimate with commentary than there used to be. And so there are more people interested in getting reps, in trying to do it, and more people are hearing each other. I think that's great. I think we could, be at the forefront of what could be like a golden age of Ultimate commentary if we go in the right direction from here.
I agree. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It is great to have you with us. And we got a subscriber bonus coming up this week, Keith. Oh, we got more live reacts
This
coming
weekend,
for
we'll have
next
live
weekend's
reacts to regionals.
college regionals. So we may do a preview show again if it feels warranted on Saturday, and then we'll definitely be with you on Sunday for a react show. We've got live coverage coming from both the Northwest regions and the New England men's. So make sure you get yourself a subscription and enjoy the games this weekend. For Keith Raynor, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. We'll talk to you next Tuesday right here on Deep Look.